Hey fam, it's 7 a.m. It's Sunday. I am in my car about to go to the gym, but I have been editing and contemplating this beautiful podcast I did with a dear friend, Sylvester Mcnutt the third. He is the author of 9 best-selling books, super inspiring guy from Chicago. You know, we talk everything about inner child healing. We talk about forgiveness. We talk about the creative process. We talk about how becoming a parent changes you and also deepens your healing process. And we also talk about, you know, what he's working on, how he landed his book deal, and the stream of consciousness that comes through in his writing process, which is very, very inspiring for anyone who's a creative out there who has ever felt burnt out or felt like they had a block. He talks about his process of showing up every single day to do the work. Super inspiring. Let's get into it.
I appreciate the tell us what you're most excited about. One of the things that I'm working on talks about how a lot of the times our introduction to conversation or to people is leveraged under the muse of this industrialist mindset that is the backbone of our society, which is like, what do you do and why does that matter?
Where can I size you up in my bubble?
Right.
Hey.
Where can I size you up so I either can use you? Essentially, we don't say it that way, but essentially,
it's the truth.
Essentially, that's what it is. It's like, how can I use you? You know, and I feel like it does such a disservice to the soul. You know, it does such a disservice to the connection, and that's why I can appreciate the question of, you know, what are you excited about? Because the truth is, I'm making carne asada tonight for the first time, and that's something I'm excited about. But that serves no one. you know what I mean? That helps no one. But that is the truthful answer. That's genuine to my journey in this moment. So I appreciate that.
If it's a success, you're gonna share the recipe. Then we can serve the people.
right. And you know, what I'm working on professionally definitely impacts the soul. At least for me, I've chosen to do a job that gives me a lot of fulfillment, which is writing books. And you know, one of the things that I'm most curious about right now is how do you fix yourself in a broken place? How do you become whole in a place that causes so much trauma and darkness and pain? And that's what I'm really concerned about in the book that I'm writing, is how do we find healing when, you know, it's crazy how you just wake up one day and you're like 6 years old, you know, you're just like this little kid and you're like, hold on, what is this, you know? And then you're spending the rest of your life trying to figure out how to be a human being. And one of the things I'm most concerned with is how do we heal our minds, how do we heal our hearts, you know, how do we heal our stories? I feel like there's so much leverage you get in life once you can heal.
Absolutely. I love what you talked about, the brokenness, right? When we're broken, I have this concept where I feel like there's a level of humility that is required when we're broken open so that the divine can come through. And it's like this, whatever you believe in, you know, you believe in God, whatever your religion, or if you're just spiritual, I feel like there is an energetic force where it's higher power, higher selves, for us to get out of our own way. Because the egoic mind wants to control, manipulate, force, where the divine and the soul that you talk about is this grace and ease, and this is our dharma, this is what we're doing. I wonder, for your path, has it always been you know, what were you doing before you discovered this gift of writing and sharing? Were you in a different path, and then what shifted?
Yeah, I see those as two different questions, because I discovered the process of journaling and deep introspection when I was about 12 years old, but I never shared until I was about 22. You know, so I would say the first 10 years, it was just purely serving my own experience and helping me understand what I was going through. The genesis of me journaling and writing was really just a curiousness. I was trying to understand my parents. You know, they were going through a divorce, so I was trying to understand what they were going through. I didn't really have the capacity to get it. I didn't really have the capacity to understand that I'm being raised with my brother and sister. We live in the same house with my mother and father, and then it's just me and my dad over here and my brother and sister over there. It really made no sense to me, you know. And so I turned to journaling like as a coping mechanism, even though I didn't have the language to know it was a coping mechanism then. I knew I needed to get it off of me. I couldn't really talk to people at school about it. In my family, all of my cousins, their parents were still together, or they had the same arrangement that they had grew. So I didn't really know, you know, at the age of 11, 12, how to talk about what I was going through. So I just journaled. I just wrote about it. And it was really through that writing process that I just fell in love with writing and reading and starting to understand, or I would say, you know, telling the stories of like the human experience. Like that's really where it was born, that first 10 years.
And what within you was like, I'm ready to share?
Well, it wasn't really me. It was people around me. You know, so it was my best friend who read some stuff in my notebooks. It was my girlfriend who read some stuff in my notebooks. It was really the people who were closest to me who read or were able to like receive the medicine of what I was writing, and then they were like, "Hey, you have to share this." And I resisted them. You know, I'm like, "No, why would I share this? This is just my personal journal." And they're like, "No, you have to. You have to." In fact, my friend Will, he was the one. His words really stuck to me. He said, "You know, you would be doing the world a disservice if you kept this to yourself." You know,
it's
so
like
it was
that. It's like that carne asada recipe.
Well, I got to practice it for 10 years first before I can share, you know. So, but really, it was like that invitation, you know, to my greatness. Then I was like, I'll give it a shot. So I ended up going to a few open mic poetry nights in Chicago, and I went by myself because I was afraid of the judgment of like, you know, I grew up an athlete, so when I'm, you know, later in life doing doing poetry and writing about, you know, philosophy and healing, you know, it just doesn't align, you know, because people often judge you in one way. People don't really accept your wholeness. They only judge you as like one thing, you know. So I was an athlete my whole life. So I didn't.
What did you play?
I played football.
Okay.
Yeah, American football. Yeah.
So athlete to shifting into like poetry, philosophy, self-help. Tell me, I'm sure the mindset of an athlete has helped you in your work as far as discipline, but was there any conditioning that you had to let go of, recondition?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you have to do a complete, you know, unlearning process. It's interesting because a lot of the things that we do, we can take skills and we can take experiences into the things that we do in the future. But at the same time, there also has to be like a letting go and an unlearning, because what you're going into is going to be different than what you've experienced. So there's like this duality there where it's like I can use my past experiences, but also I have to be open to what the new experience is going to ask of me. You know, so definitely.
I can definitely see a contrast though, because I mean, I'm speaking from observation, like football player, lots of masculine, like not share your emotions, right?
Right.
And then to the space where you're like open-heartedness, I'm healing my trauma, I'm sharing, I'm being vulnerable. This is like the complete opposite of what was expected or, you know, that people want to hear from you. So when was the first time you started sharing before, you know, you went to open mics by yourself?
The very first time, it would have been I wrote my girlfriend a love letter, you know, and I read her the letter, and you know, when I finally looked up at her, when I finished she's just bawling in tears, and you know, she's like, that's the most beautiful thing that I've ever experienced in my life. And wow. You know, so she was like the person that was like, you have to share this. Like, this isn't just a letter. Like, I'm not saying this because I love you. Like, this is like really great work. So then when I went to college, I got to study, poetry, literature. I got to do speech classes. So I got to really practice in college, and I got to do essays and all of the things that I'm doing now as a speaker and as an author. I really got to practice in college. And so I feel like there was I had the education, but then I also had the personal experiences of sharing with people, like on a personal level. And I feel like having both really helps because, you learn how to write. Academia teaches you how to write for a specific audience. But then when you're writing on a personal level, it really teaches you how to write for a specific person or a specific feeling, or a specific moment. And then I feel like combining both of those as a writer, I feel like that is how you find that sweet spot, where you can get any audience, or where you can at least tailor your words in a way where you can speak to any audience.
I love that. So with this new avenue and this new book that you're writing, you talk about brokenness and healing. What has helped support you on your journey the most? Like, what are some modalities and tools that have helped you bring yourself back to alignment or heal?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first things that we can do is to zoom out. A lot of the times the ailment or the pain point that we have from a perspective, from like our mindset, is we're looking at one page, one line, one word in the book of our own lives. It's like, when I was 11 years old, this one thing happened to me on this one day, and because of that, like, that's my identity. And when you allow yourself to zoom out, you get to tell the story a little bit differently. It's not just that one thing, and that's not to dismiss what you went through, but it's just to give more context to the entirety of your life. Like, hey, you also were, valedictorian, or you also got to have X amount of birthdays with both your mother and father, or you also got to see your favorite Star Wars movie on its release. You also got to dress up as Scorpion from Mortal Kombat because he was your favorite character. And then, so when you get to zoom out, you get to see, like, yes, I did experience that one thing when I was 11 years old that was terrible and it hurt me, but I also have all these other gifts. And so I think one of the best things that we can do is to zoom out, because a lot of the times we want to focus on the pain point or the trauma or the curse, but we don't see the blessing, and we don't see the gift, and we don't see the opportunity. And so zooming out allows us to see everything.
So when you zoomed out, was this like, did you process everything through meditation, journaling? Like, what were some tools that helped you maybe transmute? I don't know. I feel like everyone needs different modalities. So I'm just curious, what helped you?
Well, the modality I feel that I just mentioned is a perspective. It's a mindset shift. It's called reframing. So it's you're reframing your perspective. So you challenge yourself and you ask yourself, is this true? Oh, I'm the broken person. Like, is that true? Well, I'm the jaded one. Is that true? I'm the clumsy person in my family. Is that true? Well, my whole family was broke, so I'll always be broke. Well, is that true? Is that actually true? That is the modality. Is challenging your story. Is that true?
When you reframe and you challenge, do you affirm what you want, or what do you do after that reframing?
You listen to your soul and you listen to your heart.
And how do you do that?
You don't have to go to the next step. The next step doesn't have to be positive. The next step doesn't have to make sense. It's just a challenge. You just need space. You just challenge the story. I'm telling myself that, okay, for example, I'll give you an example. So when my parents divorced, I had a lot of anger. I was pissed off. I was very, very angry. And so when I had that anger, the first thing I did was I wanted to fight people at school, especially, when you're younger, people, they try to bully you, they try to talk about you, and I wasn't with any of that. I'm like, you know what? You want to talk about me? Let's fight. Now, of course, this is unregulated, unintegrated energy as a young boy, right? And I had a teacher come tell me one day, that actually was my assistant principal, and she goes, so you have this habit. You get angry, you get into a fight, these people make fun of you or they attack you, you defend yourself, you come into my office, you get suspended for a couple of days. How long do you think you can do this? And I'm, yeah. she goes, how long do you think you can do this? I'm like, I don't know. She goes, okay. Well, her name is Mrs. Schmidt. She goes, well, here's what I think is going to happen. I think you're one of the smartest students I've ever met, and I think you're going to waste your brain by fighting. And then she goes, I think if you wanted to use your brain, you will give yourself space from the anger. And I had never heard anyone like really kind of use the word space, because so much of our society and our psychology is, how do we go from A to B? What's the next step? You graduate high school, you need to graduate college. Oh, you got a boyfriend? When are you getting married? You got a girlfriend? When are you getting married? Oh, your boyfriend and girlfriend? Well, where are your kids at? It's like so much of our psychology is, what's the next step? And she was the first one to introduce to me the space. The term liminal space. Liminal space is the transition of these in-between spaces, right? We want it to be A to B, but what about that space from A to B, right? And so she was the first one to give me that reframe of like, you don't have to be at the next phase. And when you can stay in that transition, that's when you can really zoom out. That's when you can get clarity. That's when you can heal. That's when you can hear yourself. Because I could come on a podcast or speaking engagement, and I could be the guru, and I could give you the bullet point: do A, do B, do C, and you will arrive at D. Well, that's not always true. That's not always true. So when you ask me like, what do we do? I would say, yeah, you have to challenge the story that you're giving yourself. You have to challenge, observe the emotions, but challenge it. Like, is this true? Like, I'm feeling like I'm worthless. Is that true? No, it's not true. I'm feeling like I'm always a failure. Is that true? No, you failed in this moment. With this situation, you failed at this. Yes, like, accept that, acknowledge that. But are you actually a failure? No. And the only way you can really get there is the space, is accepting the liminal space. I just used this the other day. I opened up my computer and I have a word count goal, 200 words a day. I don't always hit it, but that's my target. That's what I try to hit for. You do 200 words over like an 8-month period. I'm not great at math. I'm a writer. Someone do the math on it. But you probably have 60,000 words, which is a book. It'll probably, 40,000 words will probably be good enough for the book. 20,000 you'll probably have to get rid of because they won't be that good. So I'm writing and I get to like 150 words and I catch myself thinking about my word count. I was like, oh man, I need about 50 more words and I'll be there. And then as soon as I had that thought, I said, okay, no, get up and give yourself space from this task. Because when I like to write, I like to go into a zone of consciousness where you're not thinking about production, where you're not thinking about the book, you're not thinking about a goal, where you're just in a zone of consciousness and you're just free flowing. So I gave myself space from that moment, and nothing bad was happening. That wasn't anything bad or wrong. But when I recognized that, I was like, oh no, I need a little bit of space. So I just gave myself space, went for a walk, came back. I got another 200 or 300 words. I actually don't remember the amount of words, but it was a good quality amount of words. And just by giving myself that space, I was able to tap into another plane of consciousness. And that's why I feel like space is so important for not only just healing, but healing, success, understanding your partner, your friend, taking in what someone is saying. Space allows you to do that.
Beautiful. Do you prefer to write in the morning or nighttime? Do you have a process, or like some people have a ritual, some people travel, they go to some far away, like what has helped you? Okay,
so the beautiful thing about being in your 30s is you've been in different decades and had different experiences. And so if I could take it back to when I was younger, writing was always in my journal. I didn't have any devices. I didn't have any computer. It was always in my journal. And I always wrote in pen because I absolutely hate the sound that pencils make. Like
it's like the chalkboard. It's like
like they just make a sound, and I'm like, ugh, like what is this noise? Or like when someone erase, with the pencil, I just hate it. I always hated it. So I always did all my work in pen. And I remember one of my math teachers was like, you can't do your math work in pen because you're going to make mistakes. And then I would always come back as like, I don't make mistakes, which I always did, but so I've always grown up writing in pen, and I pretty much kept that habit up until about college. And in college, I didn't have a personal computer in college, but we had a computer lab, and in the computer lab, you would have your own logins at the college. And so pretty much it was like the first cloud experience you would have where your stuff would travel with you wherever you went. So when I got to college and I realized like, okay, I had a hybrid system of writing in my notebook, and then as long as I could find a computer, I would write on the computer, so I kind of used both. And then as I started working at Verizon when I got out of college doing a sales job. And that's when I got my, my very first iPhone. And then they have the Notes app on there. So then I started writing in the Notes app and then in my notebook. Right. And then I was lucky enough to save up some money and finally buy my first like MacBook computer. And like that's when my writing career really started, because I was like a kid in the candy store, as they say. I realized I could take my Word document with me anywhere on my MacBook. So I would take my MacBook with me. I would take it to work. If I traveled out, I would use it at home, take it to coffee shops. I would take it everywhere. So, how I started writing, it was, different than how I am now. So now as far as like writing routine, definitely I'm a morning guy. I'm definitely a morning guy. I have a very like low capacity for things at night. At night, I just want to relax, do my night routine, go to bed, just, enjoy my family or enjoy a sports game or something. I don't really want to do a whole lot. Now, sometimes it will happen where I get really creative that night. And people have researched that before we fall to bed, we get a sense of creativity. So sometimes I'll lean into that and I'll say, oh, well, I'm feeling really creative. Let me lean into that. But for the most part, my peak creativity is in the morning, but not right when I first wake up. See, me and my girl, we got into an argument the other day about this because she was trying to have me be productive in the morning, and I'm anti-productivity in the morning. I need at least 90 minutes to myself. Doesn't mean don't talk to me, but like 90 minutes to do what I need to do. Like I need to boot myself up. So I won't take meetings in the morning. I won't do any work in the morning. I won't do podcasts in the morning. I won't do any I need to do this in the morning. And I'll tell you why. Growing up, my dad was in the Army. And so I was forced to get up at 5 a.m. every day. And then being an athlete in high school and in college, you're getting up every day at 4 or 5 a.m. to do, hey, you got to hit the gym. Hey, you need to study. If it was with my dad, hey, you need to get up, make the bed, do the dishes. Like my dad was, a psycho when it came to discipline in the morning. And that's not good or bad. He just was a psycho about it because he wanted us to get an advantage on everyone. He wanted me to get an advantage on my peers. He wanted me to get an advantage on my family members. You need to get up, work out, do sit-ups, pray. Like this was my dad. And so, I was raised to be up in the morning. And that's part of the reason why I don't want to wake up and do work right away. Like I want to wake up and serve my body, serve my family, get my circadian rhythm right, connect with the sun, stretch, drink water, take my vitamins, whatever I'm doing. Then I can get to, productivity after that. So for me, I like to work between about 10 and about 4. That's like my windows of working.
I like that. And I feel like everyone has their own method, and some people are night owls, but I am similar to you. Mornings are my go-to. But I'm different where I'll do it right when I get out of bed. I'm like, where I'm like, I feel like you're still connected to that.
Yeah. So I'll give you a practice that works. It's scientifically proven that if you set a strong intention, right? So let's say you're working on a project and you set a strong intention before you go to bed. Think about it. Tomorrow when I get up, I'm about to boom, 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 do. And you focus on that thought, you will wake up and you will go right into it. Like, all right, I'm up, I'm ready. Let's do that thing. Like whatever it is, so for anybody who is looking to do what you do too, like that's one of the best ways is to set that intention the night before.
Yeah, no, I love that. I liked because you don't have to think. You just know what you got to do. So you just like, all right, I'm energetically ready. But love that. What has been the favorite thing that you wrote recently that you want to share?
Oh, like on social media or like in the book
It,
I'm working on?
it could be anything, yeah. Just anything you feel called to share.
Uh,
Yeah. Maybe it could be something you wrote today, like, or maybe there's.
yeah. Um, so one of the things that I like that I'm writing about is, that healing means wholeness. And I think this is an idea, that it's an invitation to, the acceptance of your failures, your flaws, the things that you have shame about, the stories that you don't tell out loud, but there's still stories you experience. Like healing actually means wholeness. Like for example, do you have anything you're embarrassed about that you experience at any point in your life? You don't have to share. I'm just wondering if you do.
Oh, so many. I
So,
think I share it though because I think it brings light to the darkness, and then it can be transmuted into empowerment.
and that's
That's just
wholeness. That's wholeness. You said
yeah,
you said bringing light to the darkness. Well, that's a whole image.
yeah,
Light and dark together is whole.
and the shame is this like, but then I feel like there's this level of vulnerability when you share it, and then when people are like, oh yeah, me too, then you don't feel like you're alone. Then you feel like you feel connected. Then you don't
Right.
feel flawed. You're like, this is a human experience, wholeness.
Yeah, yeah, and it also like it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is it lets you zoom out a little bit. Like for example, one of the things I'm embarrassed about, not in this moment, but at one point in my life, was that I used to pee in the bed. And as a teenager, when I was 13, I didn't stop peeing in the bed till I was 13. And so while I'm 13 and I have the plastic on my bed, and the sheet over it, because, my dad didn't want me ruining mattresses because I didn't have that bladder control, I was embarrassed. Like I had a lot of shame. But now I'm in my 30s, I have my own kid, and I understand that one, you have to learn that. And then two, when you are under a lot of duress and trauma as a kid, one of the things that you may not have is bladder control. And so now that I have that information, I can look back on my own self and I'm like, wow, you weren't doing this because you were defective or because something was wrong with you. You were under a lot of stress. You were, and so because of that, now it's like I have empathy for that version of me.
Yeah.
And so, and so now it's like, well, I did have shame at one point, but I can zoom out now. And now there's healing there. There's no shame in this version of me. Now I just think like, well, I probably went through. Now I can use that, like you say, transmute. So now I know that information. So if I come across a 13-year-old boy who's peeing in the bed, well, I probably know what to ask him. I probably know how to heal him. I probably know how to be an elder for him to help guide him through that experience.
How much of the healing, like in your book, because you talk about how we turn into that version of ourselves, right? That experience to trauma. I'm big on inner child healing and just connecting with that on a daily basis, right? If I feel triggered, I like to sit with it, create space. Like you said, I wanna react, I wanna say something, I wanna write an email. Now I like pull myself back and then I sit with it, and then I ask myself like, hey, what's going on? The inner child within me, like, hey, what do you need? How can I show you compassion, love? How have you connected with your inner child, and what are some things that have helped you?
Yeah, I think two things. First, forgiveness for my parents and my elders and the people who I blamed, rightfully so though, for the trauma and the darkness that I experienced. I think forgiveness allowed me to get out of the first person story mode. You did this to me. Why didn't you protect me? Why weren't you there for me? Right? Like a lot of the language that I was using was very like first person victim mentality. And that language really trapped me there until I met forgiveness. And when I met forgiveness brought me space. It also brought me empathy. A lot of the times you think someone hurt you or did something to you, and you often assume that it's intentional. And sometimes some of the pain that we go through is completely unintentional. Sometimes people are not trying to hurt you. Sometimes they're not out to get you. and I didn't realize that when I was younger, but as I got into my early 20s, and that's when I met forgiveness, and I realized, like, wow, like they weren't trying to hurt me, they were trying to heal their own selves. They were trying to figure things out themselves. Like they actually did the best that they could. When I met that realization, then it was like, wow, like I have so much empathy for you. I think one of the things that children don't often understand is that a parent's natural instinct is, I want to do what I can for my kid to have a better experience than me. And your parents may not say that. And sometimes your parents can't show up for you because of the things that they went through, and they're trying their best. And I'm not saying this to dismiss anyone's experience. But even if you just look at it from like a generational perspective and you were to zoom out, I'm a Black American born in the 80s. So that means that my parents are born in the 50s and 60s. So then if you just look at culturally what was happening at that time, well, that gives you just an experience of what my parents went through, just to zoom out. I wasn't there, so I don't even know what it's like to walk into a store and you can't even use the water fountain because you're Black. I don't even know what that's like, but my parents do. And if I was to zoom out and go a generation further, my grandparents were born in the 30s in America. Completely different world than the world now 90 years later. So when you can zoom out, get that space and get that empathy, it really can help you understand, like, okay, they did the best that they could with what they had. That quote is from one of my books called Care Package. They did the best that I could. I think I said what helped me heal the most was understanding that they did the best they could with what they had. It's like we were talking about earlier with the carne asada. It's like a recipe, essentially. It's like, that's all we're trying to figure out is the recipes for making a masterpiece. My masterpiece is going to be different than yours. I may have different ingredients than you. And all we can do on a human level is take what we have and do the best we can. That's it.
Yeah, love that. So good, so good. Carne asada. I'm just like thinking.
That better be the title of this episode.
Hey, well, what I started talking about is like, own your sauce. Like we all have our own sauce, like, right? And you try so hard, try to like duplicate someone else's sauce. Like, no, like there's an essence, like there's a soul DNA within you. And when you own your sauce and all the shortcomings, the trauma, whatever that makes you you.
Yes, sir.
That is your sauce. That is like, stop trying to be like another hot sauce. Like, be your own. Like, own your sauce. Like, like the way you cook is gonna be different.
I love that.
Like, that little thing. But so you talked about how you had a lot of anger, right? What are some things that help you move energy? Because I know that it's like, I'm a big believer, and you mentioned this earlier, that I think in one of your posts, trauma is stored in the body. So suppressed emotions can be stuck in the body. So like, what were you able to do? Obviously you have the mental shift, all of that, but what other things have, like, you talk about being in nature, taking breaks from social media, but like, what helped you move the energy out? Get it,
Yeah, so going back to the theme of space, I moved away from Chicago, and I moved to Arizona. So I changed my environment. That was
huge shit.
That was huge to change my environment. Because the environment I was in, I was constantly being triggered. Whether I'm just seeing a street sign and it reminded me of something dark, or I'm seeing a cousin or an uncle or someone that just reminds me of a bad time, or whether I'm seeing the people who quote unquote hurt me the most, and so, for me to move and just change my environment and essentially start over, it allowed me to start a new story. It allowed me to start new habits. It allowed me to start new mindsets. Now, some people can do that in the environment that they're in, and cheers to them. I didn't think that I was able to. I felt like the only way I was going to heal fully was to start fresh in a new environment where I didn't know anybody. So that was paramount to it. Another thing is consistently training. So what I love to do is lift weights, and I like to do yoga, hot yoga specifically, hatha yoga specifically.
Hey,
And
Bikram,
yeah,
26 and 2.
yeah, Bikram is tough. Bikram is tough. I prefer, a little hatha yoga with, for me, it's like if I can lift, and if I can do yoga, and if I can go for daily walks and have a conglomerate of those throughout the week, really listening to my body and listening to what I need, hitting those three, that's like my holy trinity, is lifting, walks, daily walks outside, the sun is out, and yoga. Like that, to me, that just helps you move the energy, and I feel like you get everything you need, there. With walking, you're going to get some cardiovascular work, you're going to work your heart, but at the same time, you're going to work your brain. Any creatives listening, you feel stuck, go for a 30-minute walk without your phone. Anybody dealing with some stress, you just got into an argument with your girl, go for a 30-minute walk and just let your body decompress, especially if you have nature around you. Lifting, we lose our muscle mass if you don't work on it. You need that lean muscle mass for a lot of good reasons. So I think lifting is great, and as well as hot yoga. Preferably, I like hot yoga because I like getting in that room. I like sweating.
I love sweating. That's
Put
releasing
those toxins out. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it.
know.
Someone's like, "What's been going on?" I was like, just sweating all the trauma out. It's like,
Sweat it all out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm like really excited to share the thing that I just discovered in December is doing daily cold immersion, cold plunges.
Yes, game
I
changer.
I just started in December, so that's 3 months ago. It was hard at first. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's going. If you go from hot yoga into cold plunge or cold therapy, just cold showers daily, game changer.
Yeah, I've been loving the cold plunging. It's been great for me. That's
how long have you been able to stay in?
So let me give you the wholeness here. Let me give you the whole story. So
Yeah.
First time I do cold plunge, I approach it just like an athlete, like, oh yeah, I can do this, let's go. I try to just, will my way to doing it. Man, I got in that tub about 10 seconds later, I popped out like, I couldn't receive the medicine, like I wasn't ready for it. And so, I started talking to people who do it regularly, trying to get tips, and that's one thing I'll tell anybody, is that, success is about curiosity. Like you have to be curious. You have to want to know. You have to be willing to ask. You have to be humble enough to, host a podcast. I feel like anything you wanted to master, if you hosted a podcast on it, you would be a master of it within 50 episodes, And so I'm like, okay, I'm asking people around, how do you cold plunge? How do you do it? How long? And this girl, Serena, at my gym, she goes, yeah, I can get in there for about 10 or 15 minutes. Keep in mind, I'm 10 or 15 seconds. I'm like, how? What do you do? And so she just pretty much was telling me, 1, clear your mind. 2, do a meditation before you get in. 3, repeat this affirmation. I'm not gonna die. So she just gave me this little process. And I was like, okay, I'll use your process, So I do it. And my 15 seconds was a minute. That very day, I got a minute that very day just by following her process. So then I said, okay. So I just stuck with it. And now I don't even time it now. I just play music. And I'll listen to 2 or 3 songs. So like this morning, I listened to 3 songs by The Weeknd. So that's probably 12 to 15 minutes. Just sitting in there, just breathing, relaxing, letting my brain activate, letting my body activate, becoming one, with my breath. If I could go back in time and give myself anything, it would be cold water immersion, cold water exposure.
Oh, God. Speaking of medicine, have you explored or curious? Have you tried plant medicine? Has any of that?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you probably, I'm just,
oh, yeah.
Obviously, I talk about it like through doing these modalities and plant medicine with intention, but I'm just curious, what has spoken to you the most and what has helped?
So yeah, I live in Arizona. One of the reasons I live here is because we have access to medical marijuana, THC, CBD. I'm actually partnered with Cured Nutrition out of Denver, and they actually produce excuse me, they actually produce different medicines using mushrooms, using functional mushrooms. So that's right up my alley. I've done psilocybin, which has been great, which is mushrooms, magic mushrooms for people who don't know that term. And then later this year, I plan to go to Peru and then do an ayahuasca ceremony. So I'm right in that space where I'm open to that. Uh, the psilocybin was an amazing experience. I've done it a few different ways. I've done full doses, which they'll call like a hero dose, and then I've done micro dosing. The hero dose was amazing. The very first time I did it with my girlfriend, the girl I have kids with now. And we did it when we were maybe a year into dating each other, and it was beautiful because I saw her soul, and she saw mine, and we just sat there and like cried together. But it wasn't like we weren't crying of sadness, like we were just crying because we were experiencing each other on like a soul level, and it wasn't even sex. I know a lot of times you hear that, people think, oh, it was a sexual. No, it wasn't a sexual experience. We were sitting there holding each other and just hugging each other and just letting each other know that we were there for the experience of each other in this moment. And then we went outside. We were in nature. We went outside and we looked at the stars, and I just remember like seeing the stars dance, and just seeing the rhythm of the cosmos. And it's something that I had never seen with my waking consciousness. I'd never seen the stars move like that. I'd never seen like space just like vibrate. There was like this vibrational mood that was happening. I had never seen that until I did psilocybin. And it was a beautiful, contained healing experience. Like I love how you say intentional. It wasn't just like, oh, let's just do this to escape, and I think that type of like
recreational
usage, I feel like you're not really integrating it or not really honoring the capacity for what this can do for you. And I can tell you, it's not like a daily thing. I don't do it every day. It's been very few times I've experienced with it. Another time is, just last year I was in Hawaii. I'm in a men's group, and the men's group, we took all our families, we took our kids there. We were there for about a week, but then we took a 2-day period to be together as just men in nature together. It's like 8 men. And we had a ceremony where we each had to ask each other a tough question. So we went around in the circle and we got to ask a question, but then we got to listen to and support and witness everyone else, in this safe container of men. And we took psilocybin then, and it was just, it's just one of the greatest experiences of my life to just, first of all, to be with men in that circle, in a trusted, safe circle of just like strong, smart dudes. And we're just sitting there talking about all things life. We're talking about death. We're talking about birth, wanting to have kids, can't have kids. My kids piss me off. How do I save my marriage? I want to get married. Losing weight, getting stronger, money problems. I have too much money and I have to fire people. Like, we talked about all of these problems in this container, and it was just literally next to the beach, next to the ocean. Just having Mother Earth just like nourish us with her vibrations. So it was beautiful for me. Doing psilocybin has been beautiful from my experience.
Yeah, especially what you said about space. I think it gives you so much space and perspective. And even like what you talked about, like the forgiveness work, I was able to release a lot of fully forgive. Because I think sometimes we think we forgive, and then like if you're in hot yoga, like things will come up, you're like, oh shit, okay, there's something there still. Can dive a little deeper. You have a post that you wrote recently. I think this connects to even when you said when you and your girlfriend like saw each other's soul, but this level of like feeling safe in someone's energy, right? Like, can you expand a little bit more on what you mean by that?
Yeah, I believe that everyone should ask themselves, what is the purpose of me being in a relationship? Everyone talks about it, like, oh, I want to date and be in a relationship, but why though? And I'm not the moral police. I'm not concerned with judging your why. I'm just curious if you know your why, if you have a why. And one of my reasons for being in any type of friendship, relationship, or business, anything, is it has to be safe. Now, I don't need a guarantee that you're going to be here, right? Because I know that hearts change, people change, anything can change. So I don't need some fake guarantee that you're going to be here. I only need a guarantee that when we are in each other's space, when we are doing business together, when we are friends, that it's safe to be around you. That's it. That's all I need. I don't need the fake guarantee that people look for. It's like, oh, you're gonna love me forever. No, that's not real. I don't need that. I just need to know that it's safe for me to be around you. Safe in all things. Safe physically, mentally, and emotionally. That's all I need to know. You know, and to me, it's important to have that safety, because when I have that safety, guess what? I get to be myself. When you have that safety, guess what? You get to be yourself. You will not be yourself in spaces where you feel unsafe.
Yeah, I love that, because you still have your walls. You're still trying to shield. One thing that you mentioned recently, so you said feeling safe. Another thing, is there anything that you're excited about working on other than your book? Oh, one thing I wanted to ask is, like, how has becoming a parent changed maybe your connection to your inner child and healing?
Yeah.
And, you know, like, you see that 13-year-old boy, you know how to change the dynamic. Like, tell me everything.
Yeah, I think becoming a parent has really helped me realize a lot of the things that we value is bullshit, honestly. It's bullshit when you really listen to people talk. And it's like, oh, well, this person on social media, and I'm going to go ahead and I drive a Lexus. So, but, you know, oh, I'm going to buy this Lexus. It's like, none of this stuff matters. Like, what are you talking about? None of this matters. When was the last time you held somebody and just gave them a hug and just felt them? And just actually felt a human being? Don't give a damn what kind of car you drive. Oh, well, I'll get my bonus next week. I don't care. I mean, I want you to, you know, be able to afford food and to be able to take care of yourself. But I don't care about that. Money's going to come and go. You'll be rich and you'll be broke. Who cares? You will be thriving, and then there will be times like we just went through with the pandemic and then the housing. Like, there will be times where everything is so expensive, like life doesn't make sense. And then it's going to go back down. That's the way things have always been. I don't care about that. Like, what did you eat today? When was the last time you laughed so hard that you cried? When was the last time that you ate some food that you wanted to get up and just go give the chef a kiss because the food was just so damn good? Like, that's what I care about. Like, I care about the things that bring your soul alive. And what really helped me is having a kid. Because my kid, only thing he cares about, food, mommy, you know, laughing, you know, in connecting. He's not like, you know, one of the questions I hate is, what do you want to be when you grow up? I hate that question. I look at
that's like waiting to be something later. Like, why can't you just be now?
I hate that question, because when I look at kids have something that all adults could benefit from. They have mastered the art of being in the moment. They have Eckhart Tolle, he wrote the book The Power of Now. They have mastered the power of now. And in the power of now, yeah, sure, you could argue that it's not possible to always do that, because as an adult we have to plan. Like, for example, we have to plan this podcast. We have to agree to meet at a certain time. Sure, I can agree that, yes, from a practical perspective, you do have to look into the future for certain things. But for a lot of things, the power of life exists in the now and in the moment. And I was to answer your question, yeah, I think that having a kid has completely helped me be more in the moment versus so far into what society has conditioned us to. Well, what about this job and doing this and did it? Like, no, come back to this. Come back to here. And that has just brought me so much joy, just to be able to come back to the moment again and again.
Love that. What are the 3 things you're most grateful for right now?
well, I don't want to put a bullet point cap on it, or a quota because I might not hit it. But if I could just answer in the moment, uh, there's a lot happening in everyone's lives. In my life, I signed a book deal to Hay House, which is the biggest personal development company in the world, and it's a surreal thing to say and to be aware of, because when I started that journey, I was just writing in a journal, and to know that I have a team of editors and support for people who, their whole mission is just to help me get better at my craft, hone my craft, have a sharper word when I write, and just to help me get the medicine that I'm trying to offer out into the world. That really humbles me, and that brings me a great deal of gratitude. Another thing I'm grateful for is my girl is in Disneyland right now with my son. I didn't want to go, just to be clear. But I'm so grateful that, I was able to put them in a position to do things that they wanted to do. That this is fulfilling one of her dreams. My son is in Disneyland, so he's happy. He's with mom. And another thing that I'm really, really grateful for is that, part of my money story, I want to share this really quick, is like there was a time I remember I couldn't afford a yearbook. Like my defensive line coach in high school, he gave me the money for the yearbook. So there was this part of my money story where we weren't rich, we weren't wealthy, we barely got by. There was no extra. We had enough, but we had no extra. In the first part of my 20s, I really spent life that way, like being very minimalist, not acting like I would have money, trying to be very humble about it. And I have been very, fortunate to be able to do things like go to the farmers market last week and buy, a carne asada from the local farm here, or like I say, like just being able to afford the experiences that I want. I feel like, I'm just really grateful for that, because that's not where I come from, and that's not guaranteed. The blessings you have are not guaranteed. The gifts that you have are not guaranteed. And so I'm very grateful that I have earned a life that allows me to freaking eat some carne asada,
Bring it back. That's literally gonna be the title.
I feel like I just need to invite you over so you can
Yes.
taste the tacos later on, because they're gonna be phenomenal.
Yo, I'm coming to Arizona. We will meet. I love it, and let me know when you're ever in LA.
Oh, sweet, you're in LA. I was gonna ask you. Cool.
Yeah, I'm in LA. I'll definitely show you around, and keep up the great work. You're an inspiration. Thank you for the realness and creating space, wholeness. I think there are so many golden nuggets that everyone can learn from forgiveness to reparenting, reframing. Yeah, beautiful conversation, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Where can everyone find you, and when is the book coming out?
Yeah, so I have a rule right now until my book comes out that I will not promote anything, which is cool. People bring you on podcasts and they're like, hey, like, we want to promote your stuff, which I'm grateful for. The only thing I want people to do is just to find me and to connect. So my name is Sylvester Mcnutt III. Wherever you use, whatever you use, I'm there. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Instagram, if you're on like podcast, you can find me. So just come find me.
Hey, you're not on TikTok though. Why?
I'm not on TikTok. I do have a TikTok account. I just don't log on there. I don't know,
It's too
man.
much. It's a lot of noise. I know.
Yeah, that app is. Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
There is. I have a friend who had success just taking the books that he's written and he just like reads them. And so he's not even on camera. He's just like high or lining it and just like reading it. And people love it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it, you know. I'm not opposed to it. I think I'm also just at a capacity for my own workload. And so if I was to, you know, get on like another social media account full time, I definitely need someone on my team to do that.
You do everything yourself right now?
For the most part. For the most part. I have a lot of help, but for the most part I'm doing everything, yeah. Like I have help on my back end.
Got it. And so for the books, because you talk about Hay House, congratulations, by the way, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, like Gabriel Bernstein, Marianne Williamson, like you're with the greats. So and you are great. Were you self-published prior?
Yeah. So I was self-published. My story is actually insane when it comes to that. I self-published my first 9 books, and Hay House reached out to me back in 2018, and they wanted to sign me in 2018, about 5 years ago. But I wasn't ready for that. You know, I wasn't ready for that. I had some more to prove to myself, and what I mean is I wanted to tap out as a self-published author. I wanted to hit the ceiling, you know, go as high as I could, and I feel like I did. I feel like I sold over 100,000 books, you know, self-published. And it's like there's still markets I can't get into, like the major bookstores. I've never been in Barnes and Noble. You know, I've done all that without being inside a Target, inside of Barnes and Nobles. And so, you know, I kind of reached this ceiling, and then I realized, like, hey, in order for me to go to my next level, like, I need a partnership with someone who believes in what I'm doing. They're doing it themselves, you know, and they're willing to take it to the next level. And that's how it came about. You know, I ended up signing to an agent during the pandemic year. But as soon as I signed to my agent, because when you sign to an agent, the publishers can find out like where certain authors are, and so they had their eye on me the whole time. So then when I signed to my agents, they pinged my agents, and they're like, "Hey, we saw you just signed Sylvester Mcnutt III. What are you guys doing? What do you like? You know, we need them. We want them." You know, so then when I got my book proposal together with my agents told me, they say, "Hey, we have a few ways we can go about this. We can take the book proposal and then put it to auction and let all the publishing houses pretty much bid, and then you get to choose which bid you would like. Or we could go directly to Hay House, because Hay House has pinged us a few times to let us know like that they want you, like they really want you." And so when we finished the book proposal, I said, okay, look, before we do the auction, let's go to Hay House first, and like let's give them the first opportunity, because they came to me in 2018 when nobody else did. You know, so I felt like it made sense to go with them and give them the option to do their pitch first. And then, you know, my agents did some great work, and Hay House did some great work, and we got a deal done. And so it was just amazing. You know, I feel like I have this quote that, you know, says, "I wish I could make people understand the value in going where you're wanted." And that's why I went there. I'm like, they want me. Like they wanted me before the pandemic. So it's been beautiful.
That's loyalty too. So good on you. That's beautiful. I can't wait. We're so excited, and let me know how I can best support and when it's out. Reach out, and no, I'm serious. I need a photo of your I need to like you know, like I need to give you some healthy pressure. So send the recipe, send the photo. I want to see what you create. Have fun.
Make sure you like and subscribe, and also leave a comment below. Let us know that, you know, you're inspired, that you're loving these conversations, and you want us to continue to do these. You know, this is a passion project. This is right out of my soul. I love having these conversations, and I realize, why not share these amazing conversations and these really, really beautiful people I have access to, and share them with the world. So I hope you enjoyed this interview. Make sure you like and subscribe. I will see you soon. See you at the other end. Peace.